All right, class. Thanks for coming back to this second installment of Buddhist Doctrines and Beliefs. We left off by just listing out the various statements of beliefs with Buddhism, and just taking them one by one. Going to talk about some of them a little bit more in depth than others, with the hopes of confusing you to the point where your heads will want to explode. So here we go. Something to remember is that although the teachings are important in Buddhism, the religion as a whole stresses practice over belief. So many of these Buddhist practices were established in ancient times, and they're still observed today. And one of those is embarking on the path, because Buddhism is a religion not tied to a race, not tied to an ethnicity, national origin, whatever. Buddhism is open to all people. So becoming a Buddhist is commonly done by taking refuge, which is just a formal profession of faith in these three jewels. The Buddha, the Dharma or the teachings of the Buddha, and the Sangha, the teacher, the teachings, the community. So we say, or in the PowerPoint it says community of monks and nuns, but in some aspects the Sangha is much bigger than that. It's the community as a whole. And so taking refuge in these three jewels is an important step of a Buddhist life, or in a Buddhist's life. It could be the culmination of childhood education. So you could think about, looking at the documentary, and we saw that young boy spending some time in the monastery. This could be seen as when he takes refuge and he recites the three jewels. This could be seen as a culminating point in his childhood education. It could be seen as a new commitment to the pursuit of the state beyond life and death, or nirvana. And so, although we kind of pointed out and discussed some differences between the main branches of Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, and even looking at the branch of Vajrayana Buddhism, all Buddhists agree that reciting the three jewels has positive karmic effects. It's only going to be good for your karma. To go on, taking refuge is probably the closest thing to a rite of passage in Buddhism. At its simplest, this statement of belief involves reciting out loud 3 times the following formula: I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. Oftentimes, a monk recites each refuge first, and then a group repeats his words in unison. And most Buddhist ceremonies, when you looked at your first theme of rituals and ceremonies, most Buddhist ceremonies begin and end with these affirmations of allegiance. Sometimes the recitations are accompanied by bows. However, like I said, this is seen as such an integral part in the Buddhist religion. Just briefly looking at, and you guys can pause this or look at the PowerPoint, just briefly looking at, what each of these jewels are and why they are so important to the Buddhist community. I want to, when we look at the Dharma, to kind of, say, all right, how can we make this applicable in our world or in the Western world? I thought about putting out this assignment here and looking for a newspaper article that displays a person or group of people failing to live according to Buddhist Dhamma or Dharma. and then talk about, all right, which teachings are not being followed, providing evidence, and going even further and say, all right, I'm a bodhisattva, I'm this enlightened one. My goal, and this is what I thought about you, Ashley, Lewis, when I did this. My goal here is to assist this person, just by happenstance, or by being a bodhisattva, I know where to look. I have come across, or have had interaction with this person, these groups of people, and I need to help them out. And so I thought this would be kind of cool to do, and I think this is something that we're gonna look at here a little bit down the road when we look at these, those photo essay assignments. But anyway, so that's what I thought about, when I take refuge in the Dharma, the teachings of Buddhism, what we could do with that. And then last but not least, the Sangha, right? You know, especially in Theravada Buddhism, with monks and nuns are, vowing themselves to celibacy, devoting their lives to meditation, teaching or studying how to reach nirvana, or in Mahayana Buddhism, teaching the laity or the lay people community how to achieve nirvana is definitely very important. The Four Noble Truths, I feel like, we've been over before, but just to recap, life is filled with suffering, grasping, suffering is caused by people's wants and cravings, that tanha. So life is filled with suffering or dukkha. Suffering is caused by people's wants or tanha, those desires. The cessation of suffering is the third noble truth. Suffering can be ended if people stop wanting things like more pleasure or more power. So stopping the suffering and the cessation of cessation of tanha and dukkha. And how do we do this? You must follow 8 basic laws known as the Eightfold Path, and this is the middle path that people can go on to help achieve nirvana. So when we're talking about the Eightfold Path, I've given you a couple different ways to look at it. One would be Huston Smith's version of the Eightfold Path. I mean, the version is a term that we want to use loosely. It might just be presented in different ways or explained in slightly different ways. But I want to expose you to a lot of different ones, so that way, whatever whatever you can, and I hate to use this, but whatever you can grasp onto. Whatever helps you understand this Eightfold Path, I'm all for it. So you could divide the Eightfold Path into 3 different sections. Number 1 and number 2 would be understanding. Number 3 through 5 would be dealing with intention. And then number 6 through 8 would deal with contemplation. So to know truth, this would be the right view. This is when the disciple gains proper knowledge about illness, or about suffering, how he or she becomes ill, endures illness, and is released from illness. Kind of the whole thing is, acknowledging there is suffering. The suffering must be understood. The suffering has been understood. The second one, to tend to resist evil, or to the idea of right aim. The disciple must be prepared to renounce attachment to the world and give benevolence and kindness and compassion, or karuna. Number 3, not to say anything to hurt others. Right speech. Don't lie, don't slander, don't use abusive or idle talk. To respect life, property, morality. Right action. All right. The disciple must abstain from taking life, from taking what is not given, and from carnal indulgence. To work at a job that does not injure others. Right living. The disciple must put away wrong livelihood, acts that are condemned in the 4th step, and seek to support him or himself by right livelihood. Him or herself, excuse me. To free one's mind from evil. Right effort. The disciple applies the force of his or her mind to preventing potential evil from arising in him or herself, to getting rid of evil that has arisen in him or herself, and to awakening and sustaining good potentials within him or herself. Number 7 of the Eightfold Path, to be in control of one's feelings and thoughts, right mindfulness. The disciple looks on the body so as to remain ardent, self-possessed, and mindful. The disciple in the 7th step has overcome the craving and the dejection common in the world. The disciple can also look on each idea, avoiding craving and dejection in the world. And the last one, to practice appropriate forms of concentration, right concentration. Aloof from sensuous appetites and evil desires. The disciple enters the first yanha, the meditative state. This is where there is cognition and deliberation born of solitude, joy, and ease. The disciple moves a step towards the 4th yanha, purity of mind, and um, purity of mind where neither ease nor ill is felt. Just to reiterate, and I said this before, I kind of rattled off, what does each one mean of the Eightfold Path? What does each step mean? Remember, this is designed to guide people without making life too strict or too easy. This is that middle way that the Buddhists called lives guided by the laws of the Eightfold Path. And this was established by the Buddha when he said, I can't be a noble prince with everything, in the world, all these luxuries, but the ascetic is not the right thing either. I got to find that middle way. The 5 precepts. This is another statement of belief. The 5 precepts with Theravada Buddhism, and then the Mahayana Buddhists actually add 5 more precepts. So after taking the refuge, most Buddhists vow to follow these 5 precepts. The 5 precepts are derived from the steps of the Eightfold Path, especially those concerning with right action, right speech, and right livelihood. And I guess you could say they constitute Buddhism's basic moral code. These 5 precepts are chanted regularly in rituals both by monks and the laity. And so as you can see when we're listing these out, the 5 precepts are vows to abstain from potentially destructive actions. And therefore, you see these 5 precepts, they set boundaries for leading an orderly life. And for the most part, these actions do not run counter to the for the most part, actions that don't run counter to the precepts are perfectly acceptable. And these 5 precepts are open to a wide range of interpretation. So, for example, some Buddhists view the 5th precept concerning intoxicants as allowing for occasional consumption of alcohol, so as long as it does not lead to intoxication. You don't get drunk off of it. Members of the monastery or monastic orders, they take far more restrictive vows in addition to these 5. Looking at each one, the first precept on avoiding harm does not require Buddhists to be vegetarians. Vegetarianism is encouraged, but many Buddhists eat fish or meat except on special occasions. Theravada monastic codes do not prohibit monks or nuns from eating meat, only from eating creatures specifically slaughtered for them. So monks and nuns are to follow the Buddhist example and eat whatever food they receive, with this idea that overcoming desire and attachment is far more important than just avoiding meat. Most Mahayana lineages, though, require their members to be vegetarians on this understanding that eating meat causes animal suffering. And so you see there's that slight difference between the 2 schools of thought. Mahayana Buddhists, they may follow an expanded version of the 5 precepts known as the 10 good actions. So in addition to abstaining from harming, stealing, and illicit sexual activity covered by 3 of the 5 precepts, the 10 good actions include prohibitions on certain types of speech, lying, using harsh words, using words designed to cause enmity, engage in idle or useless talk, and they also include prohibitions on being greedy, becoming enraged, and holding these quote-unquote wrong views. And so with Mahayana Buddhism, by abiding by such prohibitions or by abstaining from these actions, it helps purge this mind of unwholesome thoughts and dispositions, and therefore you remove any motivation to commit harmful deeds.